Hey team, we are back, and today we're going to be talking about naming a business or brand, and I'm going to give you some tips or tricks. All right, so let's go. Firstly, the brand name is an essential part of the brand's identity. It's one of the main components that people use to identify with your brand or your client's brand or whichever brand we're talking about. So when we talk about those 6 components, again, we've got brand story, brand personality, brand name, the services and products that they usually use. We've also got the visual identity and the verbal identity. And as you can see here by that little purple number just in the bottom left-hand corner, brand name is a part of that identity. It's one of the things that the audience identify with, okay, which is why it's so important to get it right. Another important thing is that it's also one of the most commonly remembered elements of a brand's identity. It's one of the things that people identify with the most. I'll tell you a little story about how Made by James came about. It's one of those things like you can overthink a name so much. You try and think about trying to be clever and trying to be witty and trying to be like overly trendy with maybe what people are using right now. So when I came up with the idea for Made by James, what I was actually trying to do was future-proof myself in a way, because back then, 12 years ago, I knew I was a designer. I knew I wanted to be in design. I was doing lots of logos, visual identities, but I wasn't too sure where I was going. I didn't really have a much bigger plan than just staying alive, surviving in the industry, and just taking each day as it came. So I really wanted a name that would travel well. So I came up with this idea of Made by James, because theoretically, anything that I touch was going to be made by me. So whatever I did in the future, whether it be educating like now, coaching, building courses, continuing to work with clients, it was always going to be made by James. So it allowed me to have that longevity and that future-proof so just remember that as well, like this idea of like, don't overthink a name obviously, but also try and make sure whatever you are choosing is easy to say, is easy to remember, because it's one of the things that people most commonly associate with your brand. So where should we start with naming? I have some basic thoughts, basic ideas that I've learned over time that you can find in books, you can find on the internet, but I'll break them down to you into some categories, and I'll give you some tips and tricks and some ideas on how you can start to formulate names for your business, formulate names for your clients. And this also, let's be very, very, very thoughtful about this, is that if you are helping to name a company, unless it's your own, obviously, you should be charging for this. This should be a part of your upsell. This should be a part of something that you charge your clients for, because naming a brand can take some time and it can take a lot of iterations, and it shouldn't be something that you're doing for free, okay? So where should we start on this page? So we'll start on the left-hand side with these, 7 categories. And now these are, I've taken these from books. There's a great book by Alina Wheeler, God bless her soul. She unfortunately passed away recently. I was lucky enough to be in her latest rendition of Building Brand Identity. But some of this stuff is from her books, and there's other books around on naming and stuff as well, which we can possibly list in the underneath bit. Bio, what do you call it? Comment section? You know what I mean. But here are some different descriptive kind of ways of thinking about it. So there's founder, descriptive, fabricated, metaphorical, acronym, the joiner, and the foreign friends. Now, these are some that have been around for a long time, but they give you an idea of how you can go about potentially choosing a name for your brand, or like I said, all your clients' brands. So founder, very obvious. Here's an example, Ben & Jerry's, using the names of the founders to build the brand name. Number 2, descriptive, Body Shop. Now, this is not left up to the imagination. The Body Shop, I believe it's a global brand, but if for anybody that doesn't know it, they do kind of moisturizers, soaps, balms, and stuff for your body. It's a healthcare shop. But the Body Shop, it leaves nothing up to the imagination. You know exactly what it's about. It's descriptive, okay? Fabricated. This is basically something that's totally made up. Spotify, is a great example of this. It's maybe, do you know what I mean? It's an amalgamation of many words. It's an amalgamation of many ideas. It's maybe what they've done when they've coming up with the name is they're just moving things around and seeing what works, but ultimately it's totally fabricated. It's not an existing word, and it's now theirs to own. Spotify, a great example of this. Metaphorical, story. North Face is a great example. Patagonia is a great example. These are names that kind of are more suggestive and more story-based, more kind of synonymous with a thought or a feeling, this kind of metaphorical reasoning. So this is a really good way to go if you want to go in that way. Acronym. International Business Machines. IBM, obviously, we all know them. You could break down a much longer word or a longer set of words and bring them into an acronym. Made by James, MBJ. International Business Machines. Sorry, I don't know how I keep forgetting that. IBM, CNN, HBO. There's so many acronyms out there. And what they do is they somewhat allow a potentially long name to be shortened into something punchier. The joiner. This is where basically what you could do is you could bring two words together, Pinterest, pin and interest, something that their whole brand is based upon, pinning it, and all that jazz. So what they've done here is they've taken two words and they've spunk them together into something that works really, really nicely. Foreign friends. Now, this is an idea where you can take words that are in a different language and bring them into your personal brand. Now, Samsung, I believe, means 3 stars in Korean. But, just an example, like you don't have to use the vocabulary that is open to you in a particular day. Do you know what I mean? Just because you're in that country. I know Latin words, bring a lot of meaning, Old English and all that kind of stuff. If you have a feeling or a name that you have in mind, why not look at its foreign counterpart? Why not look at what it means in different, what the pronunciation or the word is in different languages to add a little bit of jazz, all right? So here are kind of 7 different ideas on how you can start thinking about how to name a business. Now, on the right-hand side here are just some ideas, some tips and some tricks, oxymorons, using a thesaurus, bringing together adjectives, especially the top one, oxymoron. When I started my own agency, Baby Giant, I knew I wanted something different. I didn't want something like creative agency studio design co. Do you know what I mean? Because it was there was a lot of that kind of digital marketing, in the kind of decade ago, 12 years ago. So I wanted something that was totally unique, something that totally stood out. And it didn't really bother me that it didn't really align with the design well, because I knew my work would be the thing that did that. So coming up with Baby Giant, basically what I did is I found a list of oxymorons and I got down to B and I found Baby Giant and I went bing, bang, bosh, let's go. Like I said, I didn't overthink it. I knew it would stick. It sounded great. I liked it, which was the most important thing. And it allowed me to build a very successful agency. Okay, so oxymorons are always a really fun one to play with. Thesaurus, again, you can find a word you like, open a thesaurus, or you can use ChatGPT now, or whatever it is, just to look at different ways to use that word, different options for that word, different relative words to that particular word, and you can start moving this stuff around. Really useful exercise. And again, those adjectives, they're great things to bring into your brand naming solutions. And what I would do with any of these, like right now, as if you are going through this naming process, is to just come up with options and test. Do you know what I mean? Like, bring in like 10 variations of this, 10 variations of this, 10 variations of this, and bring them all together. Do some testing, maybe ask a couple of members of your audience, maybe ask a couple of friends, always bearing in mind, obviously, the brand and the strategy and the positioning and the audience you're trying to attend or trying to attract, but it's really, really important to kind of do some like brain dumping. Get it down on paper. Don't overthink it. Don't just lean into one and then run with it, unless you're a crazy person like me who just found Baby Jump. But I looked for a list of oxymorons. Do you know what I mean? No. Yes, let's go with it. But then I asked my business partner. Then I asked some friends. And then we leaned in. Okay, so as I said, don't overthink it. Rapid prototype and just think of loads of different stuff, and you will soon find a name that clicks. All right. Did you know that Lego means play well? It's actually derivative or derives, stupid word, derivative. My dyslexia doesn't do well with that word. It derives from the Danish legut. Excuse any of my Danish friends if I have totally mispronounced that. But it comes from play well, legut, which means Lego. Do you know what I mean? This is how those foreign friends can create a wonderful, wonderful brand name that's easy pronounced, great linguistics, easy to remember, short, powerful, okay? So always doing that research is a really, really, really powerful thing. Now, finally, before we sign off, there are 3 important things you should remember when it comes to your brand name: choosing a name, coming up with a name, helping your clients come up with a name, helping yourself come up with a name, linguistics, brand alignment, and legal shiz. So linguistics are simple things like pronunciation, making sure it means doesn't mean something rude or obnoxious in a different language, making sure it's easy to pronounce, making sure it's easy to say, easy to spell. All of these things are very, very important when it comes to brand naming. Okay. Brand alignment. Now, whatever you choose should align with your personality, your core values, your position, the things you want to identify with, your identity, all of these things. Like, it's very, very important that the name that you come up with aligns with who you are, where you're going, and what you want to be, because that name is going to stick with you along that journey, and it has to work. All right. Finally, legal shiz. Now, I do have an IP guideline stock, a copyright guideline stock, trademarks, registered trademarks, copyright protection, like attached to this thing for free. Read through it. It was put together by my trademark lawyer, Trademark Brothers, great guys, and it will just help you kind of just understand a little bit of the nuances and the idiosyncrasies of the trademarking process. But it's really, really important that once you find your name, that you spend a little bit of time making sure that it's not in use, making sure that you can protect it if you want to protect it, making sure that, like I said, you're going through the legal ways of just, making sure that it's protected. Look, if you just chuck a TM on it, it doesn't mean it's protected. Do you know what I mean? You have some creative copyright, of course, but especially if it's for a business and it's for a client, you want to let them go through that process of trademarking it, because you don't want anything to kick you in the buttocks later down the line. All right, team? So there you go. Grab that freebie, that IP guide, absorb more knowledge in one of these videos that are flying around, and hit the subscribe